Welcome to my channel. I hope today's story captures your interest and leaves you wanting more. Your continued support truly means a lot to me. Now, let's get started with the story.
It didn't happen during a fight. Not in the car. Not behind a slammed door. It happened at a dinner table in Breckenridge. We were supposed to be celebrating. Reconnecting. That's what Liz called it. A reconnect weekend with her friends from grad school. One of those glitzy Colorado lodges with plaid blankets and overpriced wine. The kind of place that smells like cedar and expensive cologne. Too clean. Too curated. We sat at a table meant for 8, crammed with 12. Candles low, steak half-cut. Everyone riding that edge between tipsy and mean. Liz was radiant, loud, holding court. Her friends watched her with the same admiration they always had. That cult leader glow women like her wear in rooms like that. She knew how to perform for them. Her voice would rise and fall in perfect crescendos. Right on cue. She dropped names. Quoted authors she'd never read. Tossed her hair back like it was scripted. I was 2 seats to her left. Quiet. Fork in hand. Smiling when I was supposed to. Laughing when expected. Then it happened. One of her friends, Marcy, I think, said something about marriage. About how hard it is to keep the spark alive. Liz laughed. Full-throated. Then she said it. Without me, you're nothing. Just like that. And then she laughed again. A bigger laugh. The kind that begs for applause. I stared at her. So did the table. She leaned in like she was sharing a secret with the group. No, seriously, she added, still smiling. Sometimes I think he's just dumb. That was the second blade. Twisted, not cut. The table went still. Forks hovered. Glasses froze mid-air. Even the server, poor kid with a wine bottle in one hand, looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. No one said a word. She thought it was funny. That's what haunts me. Not that she said it, but that she meant it as entertainment. I smiled. Just barely. Bit down on a piece of overcooked lamb and let the moment pass. Chewed slowly. Swallowed the ash. Then I turned to her and said, "Dinner tomorrow? Just the 2 of us." She blinked, surprised. Nodded. Sure. She thought she had won. She didn't ask why I wasn't angry. Why I didn't laugh back. She didn't see that something in me had gone quiet. She should have. The next day, I picked her up in a rental navy, clean, no dents. She wore that red coat I bought her 3 winters ago, back when I still believed we were building something. She slid into the passenger seat like nothing had happened. "Where are we going?" she asked. I didn't answer. I drove. Past the ski lifts. Past the glittering peaks. Down through Dillon into Denver. She played with her phone. Touched up her lipstick in the mirror. Asked again where we were headed. Still, I said nothing. We pulled up to a cul-de-sac on the south side. A quiet neighborhood, new construction, the kind of place where the streetlights hum and the lawns are measured. I turned into a driveway she didn't recognize. A 2-story house stood waiting. Pale wood. Steel fixtures. Big windows. The porch light was already on. She stepped out slowly. Her heels clicked against the concrete. "Whose house is this?" she asked. I walked up the steps. Took the key from my coat. Unlocked the door. The lights came on soft, warm. Inside, polished floors. Granite counters. A fireplace with stones stacked to the ceiling. She didn't move. This is yours?" she whispered. I nodded. She stepped in like she was trespassing. Touched the banister. The kitchen island. The handles on the cabinet doors. "But how?" "I built it," I said. Her mouth parted, but nothing came out. The last time she saw me working on anything, I was in a freezing garage in Oklahoma, patching drywall with borrowed tools. I remember her standing in the doorway, arms crossed, laughing. "You really think you're gonna make something out of this dump?" She didn't think I would make anything. Not of that house. Not of myself. This place, this life I built in silence. 6 months of overtime. Weekend contracts. Nights spent drawing blueprints instead of watching movies with her. She thought I was being distant, inattentive. I was building something she never believed I could. And I never told her, because I wanted it to be mine. She walked through the living room, past the bookshelves I installed myself, past the office with the walnut desk, past the hall lined with paintings she'd never seen. "You didn't tell me," she said softly. "You didn't ask." We sat at the kitchen table. I poured her a drink. She stared at the glass. "You're really not coming back to Breckenridge?" I shook my head. "But, my friends, they're not mine." She flinched. Just a flicker. I could have told her about the months I spent in silence, coming home to Ellie's cold shoulder, to her sarcasm, to the 1,000 tiny cuts she delivered every day. I could have reminded her of the nights I made dinner while they ignored me, of the bills I paid, the loans I co-signed, but she already knew. She knew, and she let it happen. "You're overreacting," she said eventually. I smiled, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. That word, overreacting, it's always the shield they hide behind when the mask slips and the wound is too visible. I didn't answer. She stood, walked to the window. "So that's it. No shouting. No grand declarations. Just this. A quiet room. A house that didn't belong to her. A man she thought she could humiliate in public, now holding the silence like a sword. This house," she said, still staring out the window. "It's beautiful. I know." The snow began to fall outside. She looked back at me then, really looked, and I saw something new in her face. Not fear, not guilt, loss. It was the first honest thing she'd shown me in years. I left the key on the counter. I never said goodbye. I never drove her back to Breckenridge. She texted me the next morning, a dry question mark. No words, no apology, just silence broken by punctuation. I didn't reply. I had already checked out of the lodge's shared Airbnb, left behind the snow boots, let the car service bill me directly. I was gone before she even opened her eyes. I didn't leave a note, didn't leave a trace. The thing about silence is it's louder than anything else once you get used to it. It fills the room like smoke. It stains the air. That first morning alone in the new house, I made coffee and sat in my chair without background noise, without her laugh echoing off the walls like a cracked bell, without Ellie's door slamming at 8 a.m., out of passive teenage spite. And for the first time in years, I didn't brace myself before the day began. No more side eyes. No more fake apologies. No more pretending we were ever on the same team. I didn't shout. I didn't threaten. I didn't beg. I withdrew. She would feel it in waves. First, just confusion. Why didn't he respond? Where did he go? Then irritation. Then that creeping panic that builds when a resource goes offline and the bills start whispering louder than your pride. I started with the accounts. Credit cards, frozen. Savings, rerouted. Emergency fund, locked. She'd find out the hard way. A declined transaction. A frozen tuition payment for Ellie's spring semester. A broken link to a lifestyle built on someone else's back. I shut off the pocket money Ellie used for groceries and Starbucks runs and late-night takeout. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because I finally accepted she never saw it as generosity. It was air to her, taken for granted. An air shouldn't have to explain itself. Insurance? Gone. My plan. My policy. She'd have to apply on her own now. I imagined her sitting at her laptop, red-faced, realizing she didn't know the passwords, couldn't find the files, had never bothered to learn how the world she lived in was built and maintained. I didn't owe anyone an explanation, and so I gave none. 2 days later, the messages started. Ellie came first. Always the quick one when it came to finger-pointing. "Are you serious right now?" she wrote. "Mom says you're being immature. No greeting. No hey. No, I hope you're okay." Just condemnation disguised as confusion. I didn't reply. Then came Liz. "You can't just leave like this. You're being dramatic." Dramatic. I had spent the last 8 years fixing garbage disposals and paying off medical bills and driving Ellie to college tours while her real father updated Instagram from poolside bars in Phoenix. I had been background noise in my own story, and the first time I said nothing instead of yes, it was dramatic? No, it was clarity. That first week alone, I slept through the night. No clenched jaw. No waiting for the phone to buzz with an overdraft warning or a last-minute school fee. I ate full meals. Food stayed hot. Coffee stayed mine. The silence wasn't empty. It was earned. 3 days after that, Ellie tried again. You really canceled tuition? Seriously? This time I opened the message. Let the read receipt haunt her. Then I closed it again without typing a word. Because what would I even say? That love doesn't come with a receipt. But when it's treated like a subscription, it's allowed to expire? That I paid because I believed in her future. Not because I owed her one? Ellie was old enough to understand consequences. She was 19. Old enough to weaponize the word step when it suited her, and old enough to pretend she hadn't. When her loan application got denied, the tone shifted. Please, she texted. Just this semester. I'll pay you back. Mom doesn't know I'm texting. I'm sorry. But it wasn't about the money. Not anymore. It was about watching someone who had called me a backup parent now begging for a lifeline. Not because she loved me, but because her primary father was still a myth and the man who actually showed up had finally stopped answering. I didn't reply. Let them sit with that silence. Let them learn what absence really feels like. When people talk about leaving, they imagine a fight, a slammed door, a bag packed in fury. But real leaving, it's quiet, methodical. You start by removing your presence from the rituals, then from the accounts, then from the stories they tell about themselves. One by one, I took my name off the leases, off the school paperwork, off the emergency contacts. I withdrew from the identity they forced on me, the convenient ghost, always present, never acknowledged. I stopped returning Liz's calls. Then I blocked her. I didn't watch her Instagram, didn't check her texts, didn't chase. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what was happening on the other side. The anger, then the disbelief, then the spiral. I heard about it through the cracks. A mutual friend, a neighbor, even one of Ellie's professors, who called me Mr. Talbot, out of habit and mentioned offhand that Ellie's having a rough semester. I just nodded, didn't explain. They didn't know I was the one who used to pay for her meal plan, her therapy, her textbooks and rent, that I'd sit up late and review her essays because her mom was too tired and her dad was too absent. They didn't know that I once drove 6 hours to replace her flat tire when she didn't even bother to say thank you. That when she was sick last winter and her father didn't pick up the phone, I canceled a client meeting to take her to urgent care. They didn't know that none of it ever felt optional. Until now, I had always believed in staying, in building, in taking the harder path because it was the right one. I believed that family wasn't blood, it was consistency. But no one told me that consistency, when unacknowledged, becomes expectation. And expectations rot when they aren't fed with gratitude. Liz tried again 2 weeks after the breach. Ellie is struggling. You don't have to come back, but you can't just abandon her. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, slowly, carefully, I didn't abandon her. I just stopped letting her pretend I didn't matter. I hit send, and blocked that number too. That night, I sat in the middle of my new living room. The shelves were still half empty. The walls were bare. The place smelled like wood glue and open space. It wasn't lonely. It was mine. Every shelf, every bill, every lamp in the corner. I didn't miss them. What I missed was the man I thought I had been, the one who believed his effort would mean something, the one who thought time and love and sacrifice would be enough. That man was gone, left behind in the Oklahoma garage with the peeling wallpaper and the unpaid gratitude. And in his place, me, quiet, whole, untethered. They say absence makes the heart grow fonder. That's a lie. Absence just makes the consequences louder. You don't notice the roof until it's leaking. You don't thank the sun until the storm starts. You don't notice the man who's always there until the floor caves in under your feet. Ellie was the first to fall through. Her tuition wasn't the kind of thing that could be fixed with a phone call. She'd burned bridges early, skipped the thank yous, hoarded the sarcasm, told her friends she didn't really have a stepdad, just mom's husband who pays for stuff. That's the quote I saw once, on a text she sent from my old phone. She'd borrowed it when hers died. Forgot to delete the message. I remembered every word. Her loan was rejected. No cosigner. Her real father had long since vanished into the cracks of other women's lives. Other children's birthdays. A man whose only legacy was a name on a birth certificate and years of unanswered calls. When she reached for him, he didn't answer. Now the university did what institutions do when the math doesn't add up. They revoked her schedule, blocked her email, locked her out of the dorm. I know because I saw it. Not from her, not from Liz, but from the email I was still CC'd on, from a time when I was the one filling in the blanks. Before I disappeared, I had filled out every field on every form, made sure her college life moved smooth as silk. I saw the notice before she did. Watched it happen like watching a bridge collapse in slow motion, from a safe distance with no urge to intervene. The next day, Liz showed up. She didn't call first. She didn't ask. Just knocked. Soft. Hesitant. Not the kind of knock you use when you believe you belong somewhere. I didn't answer immediately. She stood on the porch with a coat too thin for the wind, makeup smudged like she hadn't cared enough to fix it, or had cried it off earlier and hoped I wouldn't notice. She wasn't broken. Not yet. But I saw the fault lines in her face. The way she gripped her bag like it was holding her up. I opened the door. She didn't step inside. "This is about Ellie," she said. I said nothing. "She's struggling. I didn't realize how much you did. I should have." She stopped, looked away. "I should have spoken up." I leaned against the frame, let the cold seep into the pause between us. "She said something to me," Liz went on, "yesterday. Said she didn't understand what you meant to the family until you weren't there. She said you always just made things work." I waited. "She didn't mean it, Michael. What she said that night. She's young." She was angry. "So was I said." She looked at me then. Really looked. "But you're not angry now, are you?" "No," I said. "I'm not." There was a silence. A long one. She reached for something that wasn't there. A thread of warmth I used to offer freely. "I came to say I'm sorry," she whispered. "We both took you for granted." I nodded. It wasn't forgiveness. It was acknowledgement. "She's out of school," Liz said. "It's real now. The bills. The gaps. I don't know how we ever." She trailed off. That was the point. They never had to know. I had always made sure of that. Now they knew. "I tried to call Todd," she added, voice shaking. "Her father." I raised an eyebrow. "And?" "He said he'd help. Then didn't." Of course he didn't. He'd shown up once. Ellie's 16th birthday. Brought her a charm bracelet he couldn't afford and disappeared before dessert. Ellie cried that night. Not because he left, but because she realized I had always been the one staying. She never said thank you, but she wore the bracelet every day for a year. Liz stepped closer now. "I don't want anything from you. I just wanted to face you. You deserved that." I looked past her out to the street. She was right. I did. But it was too late. "I'm not angry," I said again. "But that doesn't mean I'm coming back." She nodded. "That's what broke me." She didn't argue. She didn't plead. She knew. I closed the door. Softly. Not in cruelty. Just in finality. She stood there a moment longer. Then turned, walked down the steps, and disappeared. After she left, I sat on the floor of the living room, back against the wall. No furniture yet. I hadn't gotten around to it. The echo of my breath bounced back to me. I used to hate that sound. The emptiness of it. Now it felt earned. That night I made dinner for one. Ate at the kitchen island. No comments. No questions. No Ellie pushing her vegetables to the side with that same expression Liz wore when she pretended to enjoy the meals I cooked. No theater. Just peace. The next day I got a voicemail. "Ellie." Her voice cracked halfway through. "I was wrong," she said. "You didn't have to do all of that, and you did. I didn't get it. I just thought, I don't know, that you'd always be there." I listened twice, not because I needed to hear it again, but because I needed to hear that it wasn't a lie. She wasn't asking for money. She was just floating in the wreckage, trying to find a name to call out in the dark. But here's the thing. When you burn the bridge, you don't get to cross back just because the river is cold. I didn't call back. Not out of spite. Out of protection for both of us. Because if I picked up that thread again, I'd be right back where I was. Paying. Building. Holding up a house that never had a place for me inside it. 2 days later, I got another knock. This time, Ellie. She was smaller than I remembered. Or maybe just humbled. Hair pulled back. Hoodie 2 sizes too big. She didn't look like the girl who used to roll her eyes when I reminded her to unplug her curling iron. She looked like someone who had just learned how expensive electricity really is. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She sat on the same barstool Liz had once used when she told me I was overly sensitive about how the kids treated me. She looked around. "You really built this?" I nodded. She nodded too, as if that word meant something new now. "I know you don't owe me anything," she said. "I just wanted to say, thank you, for all of it. I was awful to you. I know that." I didn't respond. "I told people you weren't really my dad," she continued, voice breaking. "But you were. You were more than he ever was." Still, I stayed silent. "Mom doesn't say it," she added. "But I think she knows. She just doesn't know how to say it without breaking." She paused. "I didn't come here to ask you for anything. I just didn't want the last thing you heard from me to be that." I looked at her then, and for the first time I saw someone who understood. She stood, wiped her eyes, walked to the door, paused. "I'm sorry." Then she left. I didn't stop her. I sat back down. The silence settled around me again. But this time it didn't feel like solitude. It felt like closure. It's quiet now. Not the kind of quiet that comes with absence or mourning, but the kind that settles after a long war, when the smoke clears and the last boot print fades from the hallway you once called home. It's a quiet I earned. Every second of it. Every heartbeat of it. And for the first time in years, I don't flinch when I wake up alone. The house holds still, like it's listening, like it respects the silence because it knows what came before. The voices that used to fill its corners, the sighs behind closed doors, the sarcasm bleeding out of bedrooms I wasn't welcome in. Now it's just me, and everything is exactly where I left it. The coffee maker hums at 6:15. Not a minute before, not a minute after. The mug sits on the same shelf, the spoon in the same drawer. No one moves them. No one slams cabinets or leaves cereal spilled on the counter with the excuse of running late. My keys are never missing. My clothes don't vanish into a laundry cycle that forgets them. My chair doesn't creak under someone else's weight. It's mine. All of it. I live in a house I built, with money they never asked where it came from, with effort they never thought to notice, with nights and weekends and early mornings they chalked up to Michael being Michael. Let them wonder now. Let them sit in their rental, in that thin-walled apartment where the heating doesn't always work and the fridge hums too loud, and think about all the things they used to take for granted. Let them run the math. Let them see how far pride stretches when the bills come due. I get letters now. Ellie writes once a month. Handwritten. Real letters, not texts. The first one came folded in an envelope she probably borrowed from her campus mail center. "Dear Michael," it began, "I'm not writing to ask you for anything." That was the only sentence that mattered. The rest was updates. Classes, jobs, how she's working part-time now and studying harder than ever. How she's learning what life actually costs. I don't know how much of it is penance. How much is genuine. But she signs everyone the same way. Love, Ellie. She never called me dad again. She doesn't have to. The truth sits heavier in silence than it ever did in a title. Liz wrote once. Just once. A single message in an email with no subject line. "I should have protected you." 6 words. That's all. It wasn't enough. But it was honest. And in a strange way, I appreciated it more than any apology she could have scripted. Because it told me she finally saw it, the years I stood between them and ruin. The man she expected to endure it all without recognition. The man she let them despise while they lived off his back. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. Some things deserve to sit there. As reminders. Not wounds, just records. I've been asked if I regret it. Leaving. cutting them off, holding the line when it would have been easier to bend. I don't, because here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. Family is not a title. It is not a favor. It is not a debt. Family is a choice you make every day to show up, to speak truth, to share the weight. And when that choice becomes one-sided, when the burden falls on one back for too long, that's not love. That's servitude. I was a servant in my own home. I paid the rent and still slept like a guest. I fed mouths that mocked me, carried children who rolled their eyes when I asked for the bare minimum. I sacrificed for a woman who watched it happen and said nothing. No more. Now I wake up with no expectations pressed against my spine. No resentment boiling under my skin. No need to explain myself to anyone who only listened when their comfort was threatened. I spend my mornings in the workshop, hands stained with varnish, tools lined like soldiers on the wall. I make furniture now, tables, chairs, cabinets, things that hold weight and don't collapse, things that last, things I trust. The orders come in steady, custom jobs, clients who find me online or through word of mouth. They pay on time. They respect the work. No one rolls their eyes when I send the invoice. Sometimes I think about the garage in Oklahoma, that tiny space with peeling drywall and a radio that never got good reception. The place where I first dreamed of building something permanent. Not just furniture, family, a legacy. I built the furniture. The family broke itself. I no longer look back with bitterness. That's the real change. Not the silence, not the distance, not the locked accounts or the unspoken goodbye. It's the clarity. They didn't miss me. They missed the comfort I provided. They missed the man who filled the fridge and paid the bill and stood between them and discomfort. But they never missed the man. And those are two very different things. That realization is freedom. Keeps me steady on the cold mornings. It lets me sit at my kitchen table with a mug of coffee and a paper and not flinch at the sound of my own breath. It lets me look out the window and feel the world press less hard against my chest. I'm no longer a guest in my own life. I don't worry about holidays now. If I spend them alone, so be it. The lights are still warm. The tree still stands. The music still plays. I do it for me, not for performance. Not to keep the illusion stitched together for people who only show up for the gifts. I haven't seen Liz since that day on the porch. Haven't heard her voice. I wonder sometimes how she explains it. To her friends, to Ellie, to herself. Does she say I vanished? Does she say I was cruel? Does she tell the truth, that I stayed longer than I should have, gave more than I owed, and left less than I could have? It doesn't matter. My worth isn't dependent on their version of the story. My value doesn't live in their memory. It lives in the wood under my fingers, the dust in my lungs, the sound of the radio humming clear now in the workshop with its tall ceilings and skylights. It lives in the quiet dignity of a man who finally put down the weight of other people's expectations and stood up straight. So here's the question I leave you with. If someone looks you in the eye, someone you've fed, housed, protected, and says, "You're not my family," what would you do? Would you keep giving? Would you keep sacrificing? Or would you do what I did, step back, draw the line, and finally start living for yourself? Tell me, was I wrong? Or did I just stop pretending?